Commander Lane just finished drills and he's already back with breakfast. You don't even have to cook. Lily Ward, who was washing clothes with me, teased with a smile. I looked at the man walking toward us and froze. I had actually gone back 30 years, to the 3rd year of my marriage to Ethan Lane. That was also the year I gave birth to my little boy, who died before I ever even saw his face. Because of a massive postpartum hemorrhage, I could never get pregnant again. In those days, when carrying on the family line mattered more than anything, Ethan not only withstood the pressure and refused to divorce me, he treated me even better than before. Late at night, when the world was quiet and our feelings ran deep, he would kiss my eyelids softly and hold me tightly, as if I were a treasure. Until the moment before I died, I often felt blessed to have married Ethan. After I died, because I missed him too much, my soul lingered in our home and wouldn't disperse, and I ended up seeing how my previous life had become a joke. Less than a month after my death, Ethan made a grand show of marrying his comrade's widow, Maya White. The bright red couplets blazed with lines like, 30 years of parting like scattered swallows. Fine letters can't capture the song of longing. 100 years of true-hearted vows. The red candles and the hazy, dreamlike scenes stabbed at my eyes. At the wedding, Ethan declared to Maya with deep feeling, "Your eyes are as clear as when you were a girl. In the days to come, I'll repay double what I couldn't give you and your son before." He vowed to love Maya, steadfast until death. So the happiness I'd believed in was nothing but a joke. So this was what taking care of a comrade's widow meant. Just as I was drowning in regret over my own blindness, Ethan put on a show of visiting my grave, and then said something that made me want to kill him. When I was hemorrhaging and my life hung by a thread, he took my newborn son and handed him to Maya, simply because her little boy had just died of a fever, and he was afraid she couldn't accept it. He never once considered how, in that era, a woman who couldn't bear children would be looked down upon, or how I blamed myself for 30 whole years. Never able to make peace even at death. My little boy, not knowing the truth, called another woman Mom for 30 years. What are you spacing out for? You're about to tear the clothes. Commander Lane is waiting on you. Hurry up and wash. Lily gave me a push. I snapped my head up and saw Ethan coming over with a lunch pail, smiling. "Joan, are you done washing?" he asked gently. "I picked up breakfast at the mess hall. Let's go home and eat together." In my last life, he was like this too, using that gentleness to blind me for a lifetime. No, thanks. I hadn't finished refusing when a girl's voice from afar cut me off. I looked over and saw a figure in a dress, the only person in the whole family compound who dressed like that, Maya White. "Ethan, the flower trellis at my place collapsed. Can you come take a look?" Ethan, who'd been standing casually, went taut all over. He set the lunch pail to the side and ran straight to her without even saying a word to me. In my previous life, things like this happened countless times. Sometimes I couldn't stand it and complained. He never argued. He'd just give me a cold look and say I couldn't even tolerate a comrade's widow, that a military wife shouldn't be like that. Then he'd stop coming home and sleep at the office instead, until I admitted I was wrong and apologized. Looking back now, I suppose I had it coming. Fortunately, heaven gave me another chance. In this life, I won't let myself become a joke. I want to see whether, without me in the middle, they can truly be devoted until death. As for me, I only want my baby. He's just 3 months old. There's still time for everything. I have 2 things to do now. Find proof that my little boy is my son, and find a job so that after I divorce Ethan, I can support the 2 of us. With that in mind, I dropped the freshly washed clothes. "Lily, please take these back for me." "I've got something to do," I said, and took off running, ignoring her shouting behind me. I wandered the hospital like a headless fly for ages, before I finally found a doctor. It turns out there's an advanced technique now. If I can get a strand of the child's hair and compare it with mine, they can tell whether we're mother and son. The military district hospital didn't have that test yet. If I wanted to do it, they'd have to help send the samples to a big city, and the round trip would take at least a month or so. When I heard that, I nearly jumped for joy. I'd already missed 30 years. What was a little waiting now? Baby, hang on for Mama a bit longer. With that weight finally lifted off my chest, Even my steps felt lighter. I started looking around the garrison for places that were hiring. To solve employment for locals and military wives, the military district had partnered with quite a few factories and shops. Sure enough, before long I saw several postings. I stopped in front of the textile mill. In my last life I'd almost gotten in there, but Ethan said he didn't want me working so hard outside and didn't want to come home to a cold stove, so I gave up that hard-won chance and spent a lifetime cooking at home. The thought stabbed my chest like needles. This is the last time, I told myself. The Joan who lived for Ethan Lane is buried with my past life. As soon as I walked into the office, I found a crowd asking about the recruitment details. Just like before, the mill was hiring people skilled in embroidery. The state was encouraging earning foreign exchange, and traditional handicrafts were exactly what foreigners loved. As it happened, my grandmother's family had been palace embroiderers, and as the only girl of my generation, she taught me everything she knew. But during those special years, I never dared show it. At most, I mended clothes. Even now, Ethan didn't know I could embroider. I quickly learned the test: embroider a handkerchief. Each person could take one home and submit it in 3 days. The best piece would get the job. Sis-in-law, you're job hunting too? Will Commander Lane allow it? Someone asked. What's there to allow or not? I said. Chairman Mao said women hold up half the sky. I'm going to do my part for building the country. I ignored the sideways looks from the wives around me, squeezed into the crowd to grab a handkerchief, and filled out the application. For the next 3 days I embroidered day and night, ignoring everything at home. This mattered too much to me. When I finished, I turned in the piece with a thudding heart. Seeing how the factory director couldn't put it down, I knew I was in. Sure enough, when the mill posted the rankings, my name was first on the red notice. My eyes nearly filled with tears. I had finally gotten my ticket to a new life. The next morning, the sunshine felt especially bright, as if celebrating what was to come. To make a good impression, I got up early and spruced myself up from head to toe. I walked into the director's office beaming, only to see Ethan there with Maya White beside him in a pink dress. The two of them were smiling as they thanked the director. The director froze when he saw me. Comrade Joan, didn't you say you couldn't report because of health reasons? I let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. Director, I'm perfectly fine. I could go run 10 laps right now. If there's no problem, I can start work today. The director glanced at Ethan, looking awkward. I'm sorry, Comrade Joan. Commander Lane personally came to say you wouldn't be able to start, and he recommended a suitable replacement. We've already completed the paperwork. My nails dug hard into my palms. So in my last life, when Ethan talked me out of working, it was to make room for Maya. And in this life, when he couldn't talk me down, he simply took it by force. I refuse. The director scratched his head, his gaze flicking hesitantly among the three of us. Proceed as we discussed. I'll handle everything else. Comrade White, please take good care, Ethan said to the director, firm and final. Then he grabbed my wrist and hauled me out of the office. Just before I crossed the threshold, I saw Maya give me a soft smile, her eyes brimming with undisguised malice. A wave of nausea hit me. I yanked my hand free, stared coldly at Ethan, and said, On what grounds? On what grounds are you giving the job I worked so hard for to someone else? Ethan's face was all impatience. Joan, what's so bad about staying home and doing nothing? Maya has lost everything. She just wants to work so she has something to do. Can't you be a little more generous? Besides, you're from the countryside. What do you even know about embroidery? Ethan, don't argue with my sister-in-law because of me, Maya said softly. I'm not worth it. If she minds, I can give the job to her. Her eyes turned pink, her lip caught between her teeth, looking aggrieved. Maya, don't stoop to her level. This job should have been yours from the start, Ethan said, heart aching for her as he turned on me with open disgust, disappointment roughening his voice. Joan, I thought you were sensible, but you've really let me down. Apologize to Maya and let's put this behind us. I saw the triumphant glint in Maya's eyes and finally lost control. I slapped Ethan hard across the face. Fine, she can have the job. We're getting a divorce. Without waiting to see their reactions, I stumbled home in a daze. Baby, is Mama useless? I lost the job and you're still in his hands. I couldn't hold back anymore and broke down, crying as if I were emptying 2 lifetimes worth of grievances, until I cried myself to sleep on the couch. A harsh glare of light jolted me awake. "Joan, you were completely out of line today." Ethan was still droning on at the doorway. "You acted like a shrew in public. Maya didn't even hold it against you, and even bought malted milk powder to bring to you. If only you knew how to see the bigger picture." His voice faded into nothing in my ears. All I could see was the baby in Maya's arms. I scrambled up from the sofa and took a few steps toward her. Startled by how I must have looked, she silently backed up 2 steps, and Ethan stepped between us. "What are you trying to do now? Look at yourself. Totally unpresentable." I ignored his insults and pinched my thigh hard, forcing myself to calm down. "About today, I was wrong," I said. "I'm sorry to you and Comrade White. I just thought the baby was so cute and wanted to get a little closer." "Oh right, sis-in-law just lost her baby," Maya blurted, then seemed to realize she'd said the wrong thing and shot Ethan an apologetic glance. Seeing his awkward expression, I forced a smile. "May I hold the baby?" This time, Ethan said nothing, and Maya handed the child to me. I hugged my baby tight, my heart bleeding. While they weren't paying attention, I quickly plucked a few hairs from his head. His sudden wail gave Ethan another excuse to scold me, but I didn't care. As long as I could get the proof and bring my child back, I didn't care what they did. I tucked the hairs away carefully. At dawn the next morning, I was waiting outside the doctor's office before he even came on duty. An hour later, I finally handed him a small bag. Inside wasn't just the proof of the blood tie between mother and son. It was the beginning of our better life. I wanted to see whether, once Maya learned the child wasn't hers, she could still be tender and sweet to Ethan. After I finished at the hospital, I trudged back to the family compound. The textile mill job was gone. I needed to find the next one. Maybe it was my imagination, but I felt the wives in the compound stealing glances at me. In the end, Lily Ward cleared it up. Rumors were flying that I'd tried to snatch Maya's job, and that Ethan, being fair and selfless, had kept me from getting my way. I couldn't help but laugh. Lily tapped the back of my hand. "You can still laugh? Now of all times? I don't believe you'd steal someone's job, a person who won't even take an extra dumpling in the cafeteria. How could you do something like that? What exactly happened? Tell me, and I'll set the record straight. If this keeps spreading, you're going to become public enemy number 1 in the compound." Seeing the sympathetic look on Lily Ward's face, I told her everything that had happened. As she listened, her expression turned fierce. She even slapped her own thigh. "Those 2 shameless pieces of work ought to be thrown into a pig cage," she fumed. Then, as if afraid I'd be upset, she stuck out her tongue and softened her voice. "Commander Lane must have been duped by that little tramp Maya White. He's usually the most considerate man. Don't worry, once he comes to his senses, he'll regret it." Wait? In my last life, I waited an entire lifetime. Waited until I was in the ground. And the person he loved most was still Maya White. "All right, don't be mad. I'm fine," I said. "Let the people in the compound talk if they want. If someone really believes rumors, it's better to keep our distance. Otherwise, when lightning finally strikes him for what he's done, we'll get dragged down with him." Seeing that I seemed okay, Lily finally left, reassured. Over the next few days, Ethan acted like he had a guilty conscience. He came home early and busied himself with this and that, instead of going to the White House every day like before, always under the fine-sounding pretext that his comrade had passed away, and Maya, living alone, had it rough, so as her childhood friend, he ought to look after her. Of course, if her husband hadn't died, you wouldn't have had your chance to shine. From childhood on, you were always second to him. Since the test report hadn't come back, Ethan didn't bring it up, and I put the divorce on ice for the time being as well. In the morning, I took my laundry to the river as usual, only to spot Director Zhao from the textile mill craning his neck in my direction. "Director Zhao's here. Could he be coming to hold Joan accountable for impersonating someone to get the job?" "Right, after such a scandal, how does she even have the nerve to stay in the compound? Commander Lane and Comrade White are just too kind," the wives whispered. I set down my washing bat, shut out the noise, dried my hands, and walked straight up to Director Zhao. "Can I help you?" "Comrade Joan, I finally found you," he said. About last time, I'm really sorry. You fairly earned first place, but, well, I've got to hand it to your Commander Lane. Such high awareness. Except he didn't mention that Comrade White can't do any embroidery at all. She's not even as good at basic mending as our regular workers. Tell me, am I hiring an embroiderer or inviting an ancestor to lord over us? His weathered face puckered up as he poured out his frustrations. Being ex-military, he was used to speaking at full volume, so the wives nearby heard every word. For a moment their eyebrows were dancing, and the looks on their faces were something to see. What's the point of saying all that now? Director Zhao, my Ethan's got such high awareness, I can't compare, I said dryly. Hearing that, Director Zhao sighed. I really don't know what Commander Lane is thinking. It's one thing not to help his own wife, but to hand off a job his wife earned through hard work to an outsider? Maybe he's highly aware, but I'm the one paying the price. How else would he think? True love above all. Then he suddenly smacked his forehead. I'm here on real business and got carried away complaining. I snapped my head up, eyes bright. What business, Director Zhao? Please, just say it. He chuckled. You're a fiery one. I like that. Since Maya White isn't up to the task, here's the situation. We've taken a foreign exchange order from France to embroider a peony panel. Our veteran embroiderer can't see well, and her hand is injured. I'm at my wit's end. Will you take the order and help me out of this bind? We can't give you a staff position, but I'll give you 70% of the profit, and the factory will supply all materials. Seeing I didn't react, he grimaced like it hurt to offer so much and added, and this is your chance to prove yourself. Once this piece is finished, no one will dare gossip in front of you again. He raised his voice on purpose and glanced around at the wives. Looking at the funny little old man putting on a show, I couldn't help smiling. Other than Lily Ward, this was the second person who had stepped up to defend me against the gossip and explain the truth. As for my good husband, it never even crossed his mind to speak up for me. If anything, he seemed eager to hand every bit of honor to Maya White and leave me to take all the blame. Fine. All right, I'll take the job, I told Director Zhao. Then don't waste time. Let's head to the factory now to get the materials. This order has to be delivered in 15 days, he said. My vision went dark for a moment. 15 days meant I'd have to work without sleep. Seeing my troubled expression, Director Zhao gave a sheepish smile. 70% of the profit, and with the current price for embroidery, especially since this was an export order for France, it was possible that this one job could cover all my and my baby's living expenses for years. No matter what, I had to seize this chance. Once the embroidery was delivered and the money was in my hands, the test results should also be ready. Then, I could divorce Ethan Lane and take my baby far, far away from them. I was still picturing that better life as I headed to the supply store, because the factory was missing one color of embroidery thread I absolutely needed for the peony piece. Luckily, my grandmother hadn't just taught me embroidery skills. She'd also taught me how to choose and prepare materials. But I hadn't expected to run into Ethan and Maya there. She was dressed in a pale yellow dress with little leather shoes, looking prim and dainty. Ethan was holding a pink dress up against her, the two of them exchanging little smiles. I couldn't hear what he said, but she gave his arm a playful tap, drawing a fond smile from him. No wonder his allowance was always stretched to the breaking point. As a commander, we lived worse than some of his squad leaders, so this was where all the money went. I hadn't intended to bother them. I bought my things and was ready to leave, but Maya spotted me. Her pale face showed a flicker of panic. Sis-in-law, don't misunderstand. Ethan just came with me to buy some daily necessities. I had too much to carry alone. It's fine. Buy more, I said lightly. The baby's growing, so he'll need plenty of things. Oh, and I still have Ethan's allowance from last month. I pulled the cash from my pocket and set it in front of the clerk, then picked out several cute little outfits and toys, ignoring their odd expressions. I'd buy the best for my baby. If I didn't spend Ethan's money, it would just go to waste anyway. You're something else, Ethan said, moved, as he reached to take my hand while the clerk packed up the bags. Maya's smile froze, her face falling. Forcing a brittle smile, she said, Ethan, why don't you walk around with your sister-in-law? I've bought everything for the baby, so I'll head back first. Without even glancing at me, she turned and left. Seeing his beloved's pale face, Ethan's heart ached. "Be careful on your way back. Maya's carrying too much. I'll walk her home," he said quickly before hurrying after her. Watching him go, I felt nothing. I took my things home. A hard battle lay ahead. For the next 15 days, I threw myself into the peony embroidery, working day and night, dozing off for a few minutes when I couldn't keep my eyes open, eating a bite of bread when I was hungry. After a week of coming home to a cold stove, Ethan finally couldn't take it. "I thought you'd changed, but you're still so petty," he said. "Joan, do you really have to compete with Maya over embroidery? What I'm doing has nothing to do with Maya. Or are you planning to give this piece to her too?" I asked casually, but the flicker of embarrassment on his face surprised me. After a long pause, he muttered, "Don't talk nonsense. I'm just sick of eating at the mess hall every day and needed to vent." "Forget it. I won't argue with you. Go ahead and embroider. I want to see what kind of work a country girl like you can produce." Then he turned and left, his steps just a little unsteady. At last, after days and nights of effort, the peony embroidery was finished. I checked it over, no serious flaws. Tomorrow, I could hand it to Director Zhao. Looking at the waistband of my pants, now inexplicably looser by an inch, I gave a helpless little laugh. I'd been thin to begin with. Now I really looked like a walking skeleton. Thinking about it, I drifted off to sleep just like that. Task completed. I slept more soundly than I had in a long time, not waking until the sun was high. After washing up, I got ready to take the wrapped embroidery to Director Zhao. But it wasn't where I'd left it. Maybe I'd been so tired yesterday that I'd put it in the wrong place. I turned the house upside down, even found a few odds and ends I'd long forgotten, but the embroidery was nowhere to be found. Impossible. There was no way it wasn't here. Something had to be wrong. I paced the house in circles, my mind turning, and then it hit me. A wave of cold dread ran through me, but there was no time to be upset. I could only run straight for the textile mill. "Oh, Joan, you're here. Let me see your embroidery," Director Zhao called out cheerfully. Just in time, Comrade White also submitted a peony piece. The embroidery is simply exquisite, even better than our veteran workers. It's remarkably similar in style to that handkerchief you turned in before. I couldn't hear a word he was saying. My eyes were locked on the piece Maya White had just handed over. My peony embroidery, the one I'd spent 15 sleepless days finishing. Only now, it bore someone else's name. I'd lived through 2 lifetimes and thought nothing could pierce me anymore, but I had still underestimated the man I'd shared a bed with for over 30 years. For the sake of his beloved, even knowing how much this work meant to me, Ethan Lane had stolen his own wife's embroidery. Around us, people kept showering Maya with praise. Before she embroidered, I thought she was just a pretty face. Turns out she's a master. Her work is so refined, the chatter pounded at my skull. "Did you bring your piece, sis-in-law?" Maya asked with feigned innocence. "Don't tell me you couldn't finish and came to apologize. That's all right, you can take a look at my peony. Maybe you'll get some inspiration." Her smug face snapped the last string of restraint in my head. I lunged forward in a few quick steps, grabbed her hair with my left hand, and slapped her face again and again with my right. She cowered toward the floor, and I gave her a hard shove, sending her sprawling. Without hesitation, I straddled her and rained slaps down on both cheeks. "Come on, weren't you so capable? You shameless thief, stealing my man, stealing my job, and now stealing my embroidery. I've never met anyone as despicable as you. Get up. Why are you hiding, you wretch?" Maya clearly hadn't expected me to lay hands on her in front of so many people. She froze, stunned, while those around us were so taken aback by my fury that not one person stepped in. I had my fill, slap after slap until her face swelled like a pig's head. Only then did some of the rage I'd carried for 2 lifetimes begin to ease. "Joan, what are you doing?" Ethan's furious voice came from behind me. He rushed forward, grabbed my collar, and yanked me off Maya without caring if he was choking me. "I thought that even though you're from the countryside, at least you had some sense. I didn't expect you to brawl in public like a shrew. You've really let me down. Ethan, I don't know how I offended my sister-in-law. She just came at me and started hitting me. It hurt so much." Maya whimpered, tugging on Ethan's sleeve, her face full of grievance. Normally, her delicate act might have been endearing, but with her cheeks swollen like a pig's head, the performance was almost comical. I wasn't the only one who thought so. Somewhere in the crowd, someone snorted with laughter. Hearing the chuckles and murmured commentary, Maya's hand faltered and she froze in place. "You really don't know why I did this," I said coldly. "Show's over." I turned to Ethan with a cold face. He looked back at me, full of impatience. "The job was for Maya. Do you really have to stay bitter over it this long?" Even now, he was still trying to dodge the real issue. But I was no longer the kind of woman who would trip twice over the same stone. "Ethan, maybe you don't know? I already guessed you'd pull something like this. That's why I left a mark on this embroidery." At my words, panic flashed across both Ethan's and Maya White's faces. "I don't know what you're talking about," Ethan said, forcing himself to sound calm. "All right then, you two go on. Comrade White, I'd like to ask you, since you say this embroidery is yours, can you tell us what technique was used here?" The moment I called her out, Maya's face changed. "What technique? This is just a skill passed down in my family. I don't know what school it's from," she said, flustered. At that, the people around us seemed to understand something and began looking Maya and Ethan up and down. Everyone here at the textile mill knew embroidery was all about lineage and teaching. If you didn't even know which school your work came from, it was like eating bread without knowing what flour it was made from. Not giving them a chance to wriggle out, I continued. "Maybe you don't know. My family has been doing embroidery for generations, and we have a special technique for leaving a hidden mark in our work. Unless you're one of us, you'd never see it." Without looking at their darkened faces, I stepped forward and pointed out the mark I'd left. The onlookers crowded in to check, and sure enough, it was there. Faces turned toward the pair, now filled with open contempt. Director Zhao's expression was black as ink. "I thought I'd wronged you before and even planned to apologize. Never expected you'd steal someone else's work. I can't afford to keep someone like you. Get out today. And Commander Lane, I used to respect you as a man, so I listened to you. But sometimes you have to keep your eyes open and not let pig oil cloud your brain. Otherwise, you'll regret it when it's too late." Regret? Ethan would never regret standing with his so-called true love. "That's enough, it's just an embroidery piece. What's the big deal?" he snapped. "Sure, Maya can't make something like this, but she's kind and pure. If I hadn't begged her to take Joan's work and turn it in, she wouldn't have agreed. If you've got a problem, take it out on me." "And Joan, do you have to be so petty? You're small-minded and haven't seen the world. Apologize to Maya right now and we'll put this behind us. I won't even hold it against you that you hit her." I hadn't expected that after everything Director Zhao said, Ethan wouldn't reflect at all. Instead, he stood in front of Maya, shielding her. The expressions on the faces around us were priceless. And me? I'd been looking for a reason to divorce him. Hearing this, I pretended to be furious, let my eyes well up, and walked straight over to kick him twice. "Apologize to your mother. You've been tangled up with this little tramp, and you want me to say sorry? Why don't you just kill me and run off with her? Don't pretend it's about taking care of a comrade's wife. What does that mean, taking care of her in bed too?" I clawed at Ethan's face again and again. Because he was busy protecting Maya, he didn't dare hit back and just let me scratch him. "And you, Maya, stop acting like some delicate little flower. Your husband's barely cold in the ground and you're already hunting for your next man. All that strength you have, and the only place you put it is on someone else's husband. You can't even take proper care of your child." Thinking of my baby, my strikes grew even harsher. In the end, Director Zhao and the others were afraid I'd hurt them badly and stepped in to pull me away. The two of them seized the chance to slip off in disgrace. They might have run, but with so many witnesses, their reputations were finished. "You're a fierce one, girl," Director Zhao said, looking at me with a hard-to-describe expression as the crowd dispersed. I gave a silly little laugh, took my payment, and went to the bank to exchange it for a savings book. I'd barely made it back to the family compound when I realized there were even more people sneaking glances at me this time. "Joan, good job. Joan, we support you." Hearing the wives around me cheering me on, I felt a warm rush in my chest. comforting and sweet. Worried I might not be able to handle Ethan, they insisted on walking me home despite my repeated refusals. And even then refused to leave. They stood firmly in the courtyard, eyes on my door. "Joan, just go in and do whatever you need to do. If anything happens, just shout, and we'll rush in to help you beat up that shameless man," said the wife of Commissar Lee from the military district. Among the wives in the compound, she'd always been someone people looked up to. I hadn't expected her to step in too. "Thank you, ladies. Wait here for my good news," I said, then strode into the house full of confidence. In the dim living room, Ethan sat on the sofa, his expression unreadable. "Joan, stop making trouble. Maya and I just grew up together, so I naturally want to take extra care of her. Tomorrow you're going to the broadcast station to clear this up. Say you misunderstood us. Then we can let this go. Otherwise, if this ruins Maya's reputation and delays my promotion, can you live with that on your conscience?" He raked his fingers through his hair and spoke in a rough, irritable voice. Looking at him like this, like a mad dog snapping in frustration, I actually felt relieved. "Ethan, I want a divorce." He just stared at me blankly, as if he hadn't heard me. "Divorce? You're a village girl. Without me, what could you possibly do? Even picking through trash would be better than staying with garbage like you. If you refuse to divorce, then the whole compound will hear how Maya White seduced a married man. But if you divorce, you two can be together without anyone gossiping again." That struck a chord. Worried about protecting Maya's name, Ethan filed the paperwork that same afternoon. The next day, we got our divorce certificate. After 2 lifetimes, I was finally free of my personal nightmare. All that was left was to get my baby back, and I could truly start my new life. The day I received the paternity test results, I couldn't stop my tears. My baby was 4 months old, finally about to return to his mother's arms. I quickly organized the paternity report, along with evidence of Ethan and Maya's affair, then went to knock on Commissar Lee's door. It was his wife who answered. Yes, not only did I have the paternity report now, I also had their letters. Full of words so explicit, I almost couldn't bear to read them. And to think I only found them because they'd taken my embroidery, forcing me to search through the house. When I explained my purpose and showed the evidence, Commissar Lee's face went black, while his wife's was filled with righteous anger. She muttered under her breath, "Old Lee, you can't let people like that stay and ruin the atmosphere of our unit. 2 rotten rats like them. If you don't punish them hard, it'll chill the hearts of all us military wives in the rear. How are we supposed to know you're not all in it together?" Commissar Lee gave a helpless smile. "Don't worry, Comrade Joan. I'll handle this fairly. Otherwise, my wife here will never let me hear the end of it." His wife and I exchanged a smile. Because of the seriousness of the matter, it was dealt with quickly. The day I went to retrieve my child, Maya clung to him and refused to let go, shouting, "This is my baby. Ethan gave him to me. He's mine." So Ethan had known all along the baby wasn't his. Likely he'd kept my child just so Maya could see him more often. Afraid of hurting the baby, I didn't dare try to yank him away. Luckily, one of the soldiers, seeing things were getting out of hand, slipped behind her and knocked her out. Holding my lost and found child in my arms, I cried tears of pure joy. Beside us, Ethan stood frozen in disbelief. Of course, he'd been so sure the baby was his and had been with Maya for that reason, never realizing the real joke was on him. As I turned to leave with my baby, Ethan hurried after me. "Honey, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I let my feelings cloud my judgment. It was all Maya, she deceived me. Will you forgive me? Please, let's remarry. We can raise the baby together. I'll treat you and the child well. Please, I'm begging you to forgive me." I kept my expression unchanged. Ethan grew frantic, his eyes bloodshot, and with a dull thud he dropped to his knees. "Honey, please, I can't live without you and the baby." I didn't respond to his pleading behind me. Holding my child, I walked straight out of the family compound without looking back, away from this place that had carried 2 lifetimes' worth of bitterness and pain for me. With my startup money in hand and my baby in my arms, I boarded a southbound train. There, I would begin my